Afternoon conference. You look great. I want to talk about women's leadership and what we need to do when we win power for women. I'm going to start with the story first, though. Over a century ago, a woman named Margaret Travers Simons, a secretary for a member of Parliament, became the first woman to speak from the dispatch box in the House of Commons. She wasn't invited in. Outside the House of Commons that evening, she watched as crowds of suffragettes were struggling with the police. Protesters were hospitalised, and Emmeline Pankhurst was arrested and sent to prison for 3 months. Margaret decided to take action. She asked a male escort to take her to the door of the Commons, where there was a small window where women could peek inside. And when his back was turned, she ran into the chamber, reached the dispatch box and shouted, "Address the women's issue." Today, we're not peeking in from outside. We aren't just the secretaries anymore, and I stand in my parliament leading my party. Today, like a century ago, we can't wait for permission to take our place at the dispatch box. We won't be invited in, and we have to take it for ourselves. And our strategy has to realise that for all our organisation, there will never be equality until all our men are committed feminists too. The MP that Margaret Travers Simons was secretary to was Keir Hardie, and he died 100 years ago today. In failing health, he dedicated his last years to the women's cause, standing side by side with the Pankhurst, who recruited him and inspired him. So today I challenge the male leaders in our party at every level to show that same commitment to feminism today. But as we challenge our leaders, let's never give an inch to our opponents, because every great leap forward for women in our country has been delivered by a united and a radical Labour movement. We have transformed the political culture of our country, and we have transformed the lives of countless women across the United Kingdom. Introducing the minimum wage, creating tax credits, increasing maternity and paternity leave, and crucially pay, pension credits, expanded childcare, and the Equality Act. These things have all made a massive difference to women in this country, and it was a Labour government that achieved them. It wasn't the Tories, and let me tell you, it certainly wasn't the SNP. I stand here today not just to be a woman leading the Scottish Labour Party, but to be the third woman to have led the Scottish Labour Party. And much has been made of the fact that in Scotland we have all three main parties led by women. But as we struggle for equality, we should remember that while we want equal representation for its own sake, it is also a means to an end. It must be used to deliver equality for all women, not just politicians or the elite. So I get frustrated when I hear people say that having a woman in power is an inspiration, as if that by itself is enough to transform the lives of young women. Young women are told in Scotland, if you are good enough and work hard enough, you can achieve anything. We hear it each time a woman is elected to high office, and we hear it again in Scotland today. And it just isn't true. It ignores the barriers that young women face when she tries to succeed in our society. It ignores the fact that there are young women who, no matter how hard they work, will never achieve what they want because of the institutional discrimination that they come up against. Whether it's access to science and technology skills, tackling the gendered violence that 1 in 4 women still face, the culture of low-paid, low-skilled and part-time work, or the motherhood penalty, where women lose positions or promotions just for going on maternity leave. Having female leaders talk about these issues is a start, but it is only a start. We don't just need women in politics in positions of influence, but feminists in positions of power. Because for all that female leadership, women in Scotland are falling behind. Childcare policy is still written to fit on a leaflet rather than wrapped around women's lives. The focus is on increasing the number of hours rather than the quality, the affordability, the flexibility for working families. In England, it is considered a childcare crisis when 57% of councils report that they don't have enough childcare provision. But in Scotland, that's gone from 77% to a whopping 85%. Nicola Sturgeon doesn't tell you that. Childcare isn't just a social policy, it is a hard-nosed economic policy now too. For years it was talked about in terms of care for children as a tool for equality, but we have put it at the top of the political agenda by making it an economic policy, and we need to keep it there. Getting this wrong isn't just holding women back, it's holding back our future prosperity. In Scotland, poorer children starting primary school are already a year behind kids from richer families, just in terms of the number of words that they know. Half of the poorest children in Scotland leave school unable to read properly. For all our women leaders in Scotland, we have seen huge cuts to colleges, cutting off that chance at learning so many women need. 140,000 people fewer going through the doors of our colleges under the SNP. 93,000 of those are women. For all that we have women in positions of power in our politics, our position in the economy remains fundamentally unequal. Lower paid roles in the public sector are almost exclusively female. Meanwhile, in the better paid private sector jobs, they are almost exclusively male. We need 147,000 new engineers in Scotland by 2022, but just a fraction of those studying engineering, science and technology, preparing for those jobs of the future, are women. Just 4% of engineering apprenticeships in Scotland are taken by women. And for every £1 a man earns, a woman receives just 89 pence. Women find themselves locked into low-paid work and locked out of high-paid professions. And even as we congratulate ourselves for having women leadership in public life, we see the number of women in the Scottish Parliament fall from nearly 40% when the last Scottish Labour government was elected to less than 35% today. Only 3 of 32 local authorities in Scotland are led by women. And it's no coincidence that all of them are Labour. Labour moved amendments to the Scotland Bill, which would have introduced gender balance in the Scottish Parliament and for members of boards in the public sector. Labour supported, the Tories opposed, and the SNP abstained. We haven't given up, and we will challenge them again to stand with us for equality, because I tell you this, it would be a travesty if female leadership, rather than shining a light on the discrimination women face, became a reason for people to believe that discrimination didn't exist. If we just told them that all they had to do was to work harder. We shouldn't be satisfied in Scotland, we should be angry. And there is a hunger in Scotland to change our country. And after the referendum, I sought to harness that energy, that democratic energy that exists by co-founding the Women 50-50 campaign, building on decades of trade union movement activism for equality. The people who govern us, in our Parliament and in our council chambers, should reflect the society they represent, not a closed shop. That is why women from across the political divide have come together to campaign for legal quotas in the Scottish Parliament, for our council chambers and in our public bodies. Voluntary action by parties isn't enough. We've started the argument in Scotland, and I challenge the rest of our movement today to take that argument across the whole of the United Kingdom. And if you do that, I will be there beside you. Friends, our job isn't just to challenge men, to challenge discrimination. We have to challenge ourselves to ensure that every woman in every position of power everywhere is truly representing women. I feel such a sense of responsibility to those principles that have brought us together and to the millions of women who just can't be told to work harder. In me, you have a Labour leader who is proud to stand as a feminist. And sisters, I know that you stand with me. Thank you.